The courtroom was silent. People were whispering to each other, waiting for the next case. The judge looked bored. Lawyers were busy checking their notes. And then, the door opened. A woman walked in, tall, but calm. Her skin was dark. Her clothes were simple. She wore no makeup, no jewelry. Her hands were steady, her eyes sharp. But no one noticed that. They only saw a poor black woman walking alone. People laughed softly. A few rolled their eyes. "Another troublemaker," someone whispered. The woman didn't react. She just walked forward, head high, and stood in front of the judge. The police officer stood across from her. He was tall, white, confident. His name was Officer Brad. Everyone in town knew him. He had medals on his chest and pride in his voice. He looked at the woman with disgust. "Your Honor," he said loudly, "this woman is dangerous. She lied to the police, attacked an officer, and refused to cooperate." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Is that true, ma'am?" The woman looked at the judge. Her voice was soft, almost calm. "No, sir, that is not true." Officer Brad laughed. Of course she'd say that. Women like her always play the victim. People in the courtroom gasped. Some shook their heads. Others smiled, enjoying the drama. But the woman didn't flinch. "Women like her," he repeated, pointing a finger, "think they're above the law. But we'll show her. We'll make an example today." The judge looked uncomfortable, but didn't stop him. Officer Brad walked closer to her. "You think you can fool us? Where were you really that night? Why did you run? What were you hiding?" The woman took a deep breath. "I was not running. I was walking away. I told the truth. You didn't listen." Brad slammed a paper on the table. "You had no ID, no address, no family. You're just another liar, hiding behind excuses." Still, the woman stood straight. A young woman sitting in the audience whispered to her friend. "She looks strong, but something's off. She's too calm." The friend replied, "Or maybe she's just guilty and used to this." Suddenly, a man in a dark suit in the back row sat up straight. He looked at the woman carefully. His face changed, eyes wide. He leaned forward, whispering to himself, "No, it can't be. Is that her?" Back in front, Officer Brad was still shouting. "You think you're smart. You think you're brave. This isn't the army, lady. This is real life. You don't belong here." The woman finally looked up, her eyes locked on his. "I do belong here," she said quietly. "More than you know." Her voice was calm, but something about it made the room go quiet. Officer Brad paused. For a second, he looked unsure. The judge cleared his throat. "Miss, do you have anything else to say before we continue?" The woman didn't answer. She turned slightly and looked around the room. Her eyes met the man in the back. Their eyes locked. He stood up slowly, shocked. He whispered again, "That is her, but she was declared dead years ago." The woman turned back to the judge. "I will speak when it is time," she said. People started whispering again. "Who is she? Why does she talk like that? Is she someone important?" Officer Brad laughed again, but this time it sounded weaker. "She's just pretending. Don't fall for her act." The judge sighed. "All right. We'll continue with the evidence. Officer Brad, please sit." Brad sat down, clearly annoyed, but he kept looking at the woman, like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. As the court continued, the man in the back slowly walked out of the courtroom, pulling out his phone. He was calling someone. "Hey, you need to check this out," he said. "She's alive. The Navy SEAL. She's alive." Back inside, the woman stood silently. The courtroom thought she was a nobody, but they were wrong. They didn't know her past. They didn't know her truth. And they definitely didn't know what she was capable of. The courtroom lights were bright, but in her mind, it was dark. She wasn't standing there anymore. She was back in the past, years ago, before the courtroom, before the humiliation, before the lies. She was 22 years old, standing in front of a steel gate. Behind it was the toughest military training base in the country. Few entered, fewer survived. A tall, angry-looking man walked up to her. "This isn't for you," he said. "This place breaks people. You should leave." She said nothing. "Did you hear me?" he shouted. "You won't make it." Still, she said nothing. He leaned closer. "What are you trying to prove? That a woman like you can be a Navy SEAL?" She looked him in the eye. Finally, she spoke. "No," she said. "I'm trying to prove that I already am." The training began the next day. It was brutal. Long runs in the mud, climbing walls with blood on her palms, swimming in freezing water, carrying logs twice her weight, going days without sleep. They pushed her harder than others. They yelled louder. They made her do extra drills. Because if she fails, one instructor said, no one will blame us. But she didn't fail. Day after day, she showed up. Quiet, focused, strong. One night, after a full day of drills, the trainees were told to carry their teammates for 2 miles. Many collapsed. Some quit. She didn't. She carried a man twice her size on her back. Her legs shook. Her breath was heavy. Her back screamed in pain. But she kept walking. The instructor watching her finally whispered, "She's got something. Something deadly." Back in the courtroom, the woman stood still. Her body was in the present, but her mind was in battle. She remembered a mission in the middle of the ocean, a hostage situation. They had to dive deep, enter a ship from below, and rescue 3 Americans. It was supposed to be quick, but it went wrong. One of her team members betrayed them. He gave their position to the enemy. Shots were fired. Blood was spilled. She had to make a choice, save herself or save her team. She chose her team. She dragged one soldier through a burning hallway, bullets flying past her. Her arm was bleeding. Her mask was cracked. But she didn't stop. She fought like a machine. Fast, sharp, silent. She didn't need words. Her strength spoke for her. They got out alive. But not everyone knew the truth. The traitor covered his tracks. He told the commanders that she had messed up the mission. There was no proof. No one believed her. And she was told to stay quiet for national security. She was offered 2 choices: stay silent and disappear, or fight and be destroyed. She chose silence. They erased her name from the records. She was killed in action. No honors, no medals, no truth, just silence. Now, years later, she was in court, and everyone thought she was just another criminal. They didn't know she had trained with the best soldiers in the world. They didn't know she had survived things most people couldn't imagine. They didn't know she had once been the last line between life and death for her team. And they definitely didn't know she was trained to fight without lifting a finger. In the courtroom, Officer Brad was still watching her. "She looks weird," he whispered to another officer. "She's not scared. Why isn't she scared?" The other officer shrugged. "She probably thinks someone will save her." Brad shook his head. "No, she's hiding something." And he was right. But what she was hiding wasn't a secret. It was a storm. Outside the courtroom, the man in the dark suit, the one who had recognized her, was pacing fast. He was on a secure call. "She's alive," he said. "The SEAL, from Operation Redwater." A pause. "No, she didn't die. She's in court right now, being treated like a criminal." Another pause. "She saved my life. Twice. We need to step in before it's too late." Back inside, the judge asked for a short break. People left their seats, stretching, chatting. But she didn't move. She stood still, like a statue. A young intern walked by and looked at her. "Why is she so calm?" he asked. His friend replied, "She's probably used to jail." But the truth was, she had been through worse than jail. She had been through fire, through betrayal, through death itself. She was more than calm. She was ready. She slowly sat down at her table, and for the first time, she opened the small folder in front of her. Inside was a single photo. It showed her in full Navy uniform, standing next to a U.S. flag, with 3 rescued hostages behind her. A tear rolled down her cheek, not because of sadness, but because the world had forgotten her. And now, the world would remember. Before the courtroom, before the humiliation, before she was erased from every record, there was a mission so secret it was never written down. Even inside the Navy, only a few knew about it. The world never heard about it, but she lived it. And it changed everything. It began with a quiet briefing room. She and her team sat around a long table, maps and photos spread across it. The mood was tense. Commander Reese walked in, holding a red folder. His voice was low. "There are 3 American scientists," he said, "kidnapped by a rogue militia off the coast of Libya." He paused. "They're being held on an abandoned oil rig. Armed guards, snipers, booby traps." One soldier raised his hand. "Why not send drones or air support?" Reese shook his head. "Too risky. If we're spotted, the hostages die." He looked at her. "That's why we're sending you." She didn't blink. She just nodded. The team of 6 was dropped into the ocean in the middle of the night. No lights, no backup, only shadows and silence. They swam miles underwater, breathing through tubes. One mistake, and they'd be fish food. She led the dive. Her movements were smooth, silent, like a shark. They'd reached the base of the oil rig. Waves crashed around them. She signaled, "Climb." Quiet. Ropes were thrown. Boots hit steel. Guns were loaded. Hearts were racing. Inside, the air smelled like rust, oil, and danger. She moved first, took down the first guard with her knife. Quick. No sound. One by one, they cleared the path. Then they found the room. The 3 hostages were tied to chairs, beaten, weak, but alive. She motioned to her teammate, "Cover the door." Then she bent down to untie a woman. The hostage looked up and whispered. They said, "They'll come back. With more men. Hurry." But just as she stood up, something felt wrong. Too quiet. Too easy. And then, boom. An explosion rocked the platform. Metal screamed. Lights flickered. One of her teammates shouted, "We're set up." Gunfire poured in from both sides. It was an ambush. Chaos. One teammate fell. Another screamed in pain. She pulled the hostages to the ground, shielding them with her body. Bullets ripped through walls. She fired back, calm, focused, deadly. Then she saw him, her teammate, Jensen, standing back, not firing, watching, and smiling. Her stomach dropped. He had betrayed them. He was the reason they were found. But there was no time for shock. She grabbed her wounded teammate, pulled him behind cover. "Hold the line," she shouted. She turned to Jensen. "Why?" she demanded. He smirked. "They paid more." Then he vanished into the smoke. They fought for 12 minutes. 12 long minutes of survival. She shot 2 enemies with a single bullet. She jumped from one level to another to save a hostage. She took a knife to the leg and kept moving. When the rescue chopper finally arrived, she was the last one standing on the platform, covered in blood, but alive. She got everyone out, even the wounded, even the hostages, even the traitor's mess. Back at base, her team was silent. They looked at her differently now, not just as a soldier, but as a leader, as a protector, as a warrior. But when the final report was written, her name wasn't mentioned. Jensen, gone. The mission, classified. The truth, buried. She asked her commanding officer why. He looked at her and said, "This is above me, orders from the top." "But I led the team," she said. I saved them. I know, he replied. But they don't want a headline that says a black woman saved the day. They want silence. She stared at him. So I'm just supposed to disappear? He nodded slowly. You're a ghost now. Don't fight it. And just like that, she was gone. Removed from records. Photos deleted. Awards never given. A national hero erased. Now, in the courtroom, that ghost stood silently. The judge didn't know who she really was. Officer Brad didn't know what she had survived. The people laughing at her didn't know what she had done for their country. They all thought she was weak. But she wasn't weak. She was hiding. Because sometimes, the strongest people don't speak. They wait. And when the time is right, they rise. Outside the courtroom, the man in the dark suit was now in his car. Laptop open. Files pulled up. He stared at an old Navy mission report, one that had no name attached. But he knew. He was there. And he remembered. She saved us all, he whispered. And now they treat her like a criminal. His eyes narrowed. Not for long. After the courtroom hearing ended for the day, she walked out slowly. No handcuffs. No chains. But still, she felt trapped. Trapped inside a world that had turned its back on her. People stared at her as she walked past. Some whispered. Some laughed. Some looked away. She didn't care. Her mind was already far away. She took a long road to the old side of town. Dusty buildings, rusted cars, broken streetlights. This place hadn't changed, but she had. She stopped in front of a small house. The paint was peeling. The door was cracked, but it was still standing, just like her. She knocked once. No answer. She knocked again. A moment later, an old woman opened the door. Gray hair, tired eyes. But when she saw her, her hands flew to her mouth. Oh my God, baby, is it really you? She smiled softly. Hi, Mama. The woman pulled her in, hugging her tightly. I thought you died. Her mother cried. The letter, the flag. They said. I know, she said. They told you I was gone. But it was a lie. They sat on the old couch. The walls were full of memories, photos, awards, family. But one photo was missing. Hers. She noticed it. Her mother followed her eyes. I took it down, she whispered. It hurt too much. She nodded. Then her mother asked the question she had waited years to hear. Why didn't you come home? Her eyes filled with pain. Because home didn't feel safe anymore. She remembered the day after the mission. The silence. The orders to stay quiet. The stares. The betrayal. But the deepest cut. It wasn't from the Navy. It wasn't from the mission. It was from someone she trusted more than anyone. Her own brother. His name was Marcus. He was charming. Smart. A community leader. While she was overseas, fighting wars. He was back home, making speeches. At first, she was proud. Until she found out the truth. Marcus had taken money. Dirty money. From people who sold weapons to militias overseas. The same militias that kidnapped those scientists. The same ones that tried to kill her. When she found out, she confronted him. You're helping the same people I'm risking my life to stop. He didn't deny it. You think this country cares about you. He snapped. They'll use you and throw you away. She stared at him in disbelief. You're my brother. He looked away. I'm surviving. Later that year, she was erased. No medals, no protection. And Marcus, he became a public hero. TV interviews, charity work, political plans. While she disappeared, he rose. And no one knew the truth. Back in the present, she sat across from her mother. I came back, she said, not to clear my name, but to reveal the truth. Her mother's hands trembled. Does Marcus know you're here? She nodded slowly. He will. That night, across the city, Marcus sat in a fancy office, smiling at reporters on a screen. I believe in justice, he said. I support our police. I support the truth. Suddenly, his assistant walked in, face pale. Sir, you're going to want to see this. He handed him a photo. Marcus's face froze. It was her, walking out of the courtroom. Alive. He stood up quickly. This can't be. The assistant whispered, she's back, and she's not hiding. Marcus clenched his jaw. Then I'll have to remind her why she should have stayed dead. The next morning, she woke up to sirens outside her mother's house. Police cars, reporters, lights flashing, a voice on the megaphone. Ma'am, step outside. We have a warrant. Her mother panicked. What's happening? She remained calm. They're scared. She opened the door. An officer stepped forward. You're under investigation for military fraud, impersonation, and resisting arrest. She raised an eyebrow. Really? Who reported me? The officer hesitated. Anonymous tip. She smiled slightly. Tell Marcus I said hello. They took her in again. Cameras clicked. Reporters shouted questions. Are you faking your military past? Why are you really here? Did you betray your country? She said nothing. Because soon, they would know everything. In the holding cell, she closed her eyes and remembered her training. Stay calm. Breathe. Think ahead. She had faced enemies in the jungle, in the ocean, in war. But this was the biggest battle yet. Not with guns, but with truth. And this time, she wasn't fighting for the country. She was fighting against the ones who had broken it. Outside, in a quiet government building, the man in the dark suit from court, Agent Cole, was on the phone again. I told you. She's the real deal, he said, and now they've locked her up again. A pause. He stood by the window. I've seen her take down an entire militia alone. If she wanted to escape, she could have, but she's playing by the rules. Another pause. He turned, serious. But we won't let her go down. Not this time. He walked to a locked drawer, pulled out an old file. Stamped on it in red. Operation. The Security. Top Secret. Inside. The proof. Of her service. Of the betrayal. Of everything. The cold walls of the jail cell didn't bother her. She had faced worse. No bed. No food yet. No answers. Still, she sat calmly. Eyes closed. Breathing steady. Because she knew something now. The system was afraid. Not of her fists. Not of her weapons. But of the truth she carried. And truth was more dangerous than any bullet. Outside the cell, Agent Cole was on a mission of his own. He moved quickly through the halls of a secret government archive, flashing his ID. The security guard at the door stopped him. Access denied. Cole pulled out a small chip and plugged it into a terminal. Seconds later, the screen lit up with a hidden file. Operation. Security. Status. Top secret. Never released. Inside were everything they had tried to bury. Mission logs. Team rosters. Jensen's betrayal. Her name. Lieutenant Naomi Carter. Listed as team leader. And one more thing. A video. Unseen by the public. Unreleased to the press. Recorded from a body cam during the mission. In the jail, Naomi opened her eyes. Something had changed. She could feel it. Moments later, the guard unlocked her cell. You've got a visitor. She raised an eyebrow. Lawyer? He shook his head. No, some government guy. Look serious. They walked her to a small interview room. Sitting inside was Agent Cole. He stood up when she entered. Ma'am. She sat across from him. You found it, didn't you? He nodded. Everything. He slid a folder across the table. She opened it. And for the first time in years, she saw her own name in print. Lieutenant Naomi Carter, Navy SEAL, Operation Blackout. Her throat tightened. This wasn't a memory anymore. This was proof. Cole leaned forward. You were erased because you knew too much. Jensen had connections. People in power. People who didn't want the public to know a Navy SEAL mission was nearly destroyed from the inside. Naomi nodded. And now? Cole paused. Now the truth is ready to break free, but we'll need you to testify in front of a federal courtroom. She tilted her head. And if I refuse? He looked her in the eyes. Then the lie wins. She stared at the folder again. The photos, the documents, the video. Everything she had carried in silence now had a voice. Her voice. She stood up slowly. Then let's give the lie something to fear. The next day, the courtroom was full again. Cameras, reporters, officers. But this time, Naomi Carter didn't walk in as a suspect. She walked in as a witness. Strong, calm, dressed in black. When she entered, people went silent. Even Officer Brad looked confused. What's going on? He whispered. The judge called the room to order. This is now a federal hearing. New evidence has been submitted. Marcus sat in the audience, his jaw tight, sweat on his forehead. He knew what was coming, but not how fast. Agent Cole took the stand. He spoke clearly. I am here to confirm the existence of a mission called Operation Blackout. And I am here to confirm that the woman known to this court as a criminal is actually a war hero. Gasps filled the room. Whispers, murmurs, shock. Naomi remained still. Cole continued. We have video evidence, mission records, and testimony that confirms Naomi Carter led a team of Navy SEALs on a classified mission that saved 3 American hostages and exposed a traitor inside our own forces. He looked toward Naomi. She was told to disappear for political reasons, but she chose to live. And now, she's choosing to speak. The judge turned to Naomi. Ms. Carter, do you have anything to say? She stood up slowly. The courtroom was silent. All eyes on her. I gave everything to this country, she said. My time, my blood, my silence. They erased me, lied to my family, took away my name. She looked around the room. But the truth doesn't die. She turned toward Marcus, her voice steady. Even when it hides in the dark, one day it comes into the light. Marcus looked down, his face pale. The judge nodded. This case is now under federal review. All charges against Ms. Carter are dropped. The room broke into gasps again. Some clapped quietly. Others simply stared in disbelief. Naomi looked at her mother, sitting in the front row. Her mother had tears in her eyes. But this time, they weren't tears of pain. They were tears of pride. Outside the courtroom, reporters surrounded her. Naomi, why didn't you speak up before? Will you return to the military? Is it true your own brother was involved? She said only one thing. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for justice. Then she walked past them, head high, shoulders straight, free. That night, in a dark office, Marcus Carter poured himself a drink. The phone rang. He answered slowly. A voice said, "She knows." Marcus replied, "She won't stop." The voice answered, "Then maybe. We need to stop her." Marcus closed his eyes. He had seen what she could survive. He knew what she was capable of. But he also knew this was just the beginning. In her quiet room, Naomi sat on her bed, the file still in her hand. One photo slipped out, her SEAL team, all smiling. Some alive, some gone, but all remembered. She placed the photo on her shelf, right next to the folded flag they gave her mother, and whispered, "I'm not done yet," because justice had just begun. The night was quiet, too quiet. Naomi Carter sat by her window, watching shadows dance under the streetlights. Her name had been cleared. Her truth had been heard, but something still felt wrong. Because she knew the system didn't erase her alone. Someone had ordered it, and that someone was still out there, watching, waiting, plotting. The next morning, Naomi went to visit someone who had once been her closest ally, Captain Ruiz. He was retired now, living alone, the last man from her team still alive. She knocked on his door. It opened slowly. He stood there, older, slower, but his eyes were still sharp. He stared at her for a moment, then stepped aside. "I was wondering when you'd come." They sat in silence for a while. He poured her coffee. No sugar, no milk, just like she used to drink it. Then he finally spoke. "I heard what happened in court." Naomi nodded. "You always said the truth finds its way." Ruiz chuckled dryly. "Yeah, but I didn't expect it to find you alive." He looked down at his hands. "After the mission, they told me you were dead. They wanted me to believe it." Naomi leaned forward. "Who's they, Captain?" He sighed. There was one man behind it all. He had power, connections. He gave the final order. Naomi's voice dropped. "What was his name?" Ruiz hesitated. Then he said it. "Admiral Keaton." The name hit Naomi like a punch. She remembered him. Strict, cold, always in control. He was the man who signed her discharge. The man who told the world she didn't exist. The man who knew Jensen and protected him. She stood up. "Where is he now?" Ruiz shook his head. "You don't find Keaton. He finds you." Naomi's eyes narrowed. "Then let him." That night, back at her apartment, she began digging. Every record, every mission, every leaked document. Hours passed. The screen glowed in the dark. And then, she found it. A shadow company, registered in Panama, used for weapons trade. One of the partners, R. Keaton. He wasn't just protecting Jensen. He was funding the very militia that tried to kill her team. Naomi leaned back in her chair. Everything made sense now. The mission, the betrayal, her erasure. It was all a cover-up. And Admiral Keaton. He had blood on his hands. Her team's blood. The next day, Naomi met with Agent Cole. She placed the file in front of him. "This is the man who buried me." Cole flipped through the papers. His face grew serious. If this is true, he could face prison for life. Naomi shook her head. "He won't go quietly." Cole looked up. "Then we make him come to us." 3 days later, a press conference was held outside the courthouse. Agent Cole stood at the podium. "We have uncovered a dangerous conspiracy involving retired Admiral Richard Keaton and the illegal funding of foreign militias." He paused. "We are reopening all erased mission files and reevaluating discharged officers." Naomi stood beside him, calm, firm. Her nameplate now said, "Lieutenant Naomi Carter, Ret, Navy SEAL." The crowd roared. But far away, in a private estate, a phone rang. Admiral Keaton answered with a frown. "She's alive," he growled. The voice on the other side said, "And she's coming for you." Keaton slammed the phone down, then turned to his guard. "Prepare the jet. We're leaving tonight." But Naomi was faster. She tracked him through old contacts, intelligence channels, and airport logs. By the time Keaton reached the private terminal, she was already waiting. Dressed in black, unarmed, unshaken. He stepped out of the car and froze. "You," he hissed. Naomi stepped forward. "You buried my name, but you didn't bury my will." Keaton smirked. "You think one soldier can bring down a system?" She stared into his eyes. "No, but one truth can." He turned to run. But Agent Cole and a team of federal officers appeared behind him. "Admiral Richard Keaton, you're under arrest for treason, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to commit murder." Keaton snarled. "You'll regret this, all of you." Naomi leaned in close and whispered, "I already survived you once." Back at home, Naomi sat by her window again. But this time, she wasn't watching for danger. She was watching the sky. The storm had passed, but the sky was still dark. Naomi Carter stood alone on the rooftop of a tall building, looking over the city lights. The courtroom had clapped for her. The media had praised her. Keaton was in prison. Her name was restored. But one ghost still walked free. Jensen. The man who betrayed her team. The man who tried to kill her. The man who vanished without a trace. Until now. It began with a message. No name. No number. Just 4 words. He's coming for you. She knew who it meant. And she wasn't afraid. Not anymore. Agent Cole met her at a quiet cafe. He looked tense. We intercepted chatter. A private jet landed under an alias. Southeast Road. We believe it's Jensen. Naomi sipped her tea calmly. What's he planning? Cole leaned closer. Revenge. We think he's targeting the people who exposed him. That means me. That means you. Naomi nodded. Then let him try. Cole frowned. This isn't like before. He's not just angry. He's desperate. Naomi stood. So am I. That night, Naomi walked into a storage unit. She opened a large steel case. Inside were pieces of her past. Her old Navy knife. Her dog tags. Tactical gear she hadn't worn in years. She stared at it all. Then whispered, one last mission. Meanwhile, in an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town, Jensen stood in the dark. Tall, scared, rage in his eyes. He was watching footage of Naomi on the news. She thinks she's a hero, he muttered. A young mercenary next to him said, What do you want us to do? Jensen smiled cruelly. Burn her world. Starting tonight. The attack began at dawn. Cole's car exploded outside his home. He survived, but barely. 2 officers were ambushed at the courthouse. 1 reporter went missing. The city was on edge. But Naomi, she was ready. She tracked Jensen's moves through every signal, every whisper in the underground. And then, she found him. An old naval shipyard, closed down, forgotten, perfect for a man hiding from the world. She didn't call backup. She didn't tell Cole. This was personal. She entered the shipyard silently. Her boots touched metal. Her knife was at her side. No gun. She wanted this up close. The air smelled of rust and oil. Then she heard a voice behind her. I knew you'd come. She turned. And there he was. Jensen. Still alive. Still dangerous. His eyes burned with hate. You ruined everything, he growled. You betrayed us first, she replied. He laughed. We were just soldiers. Tools. I chose power. You chose to die for nothing. Naomi stepped forward. I chose honor. Something you never understood. Then the fight began. Fast. Brutal. No mercy. They crashed into walls. Swung weapons. Fought like 2 shadows from the same past. Jensen grabbed a pipe and swung hard. Naomi ducked, countered with a punch to his ribs. He stumbled. You think you're stronger now. He spat. No, she said. I know I am. Jensen pulled a hidden knife and slashed toward her. It grazed her arm. Pain shot through her, but she didn't stop. She kicked the knife away, tackled him to the ground. They rolled. Fought. Blood.